Now, since we got a beautiful member of the gun squad about to become a prosecutor, I figured in this video I would take the role of the defense team. This video is brought to you by a viewer and listener named Paul, who actually sent me a wonderful email with some bullet points like this, and he laid it all out perfectly. And I decided I wanted to make this video because it makes a lot of sense. Guys, I'm thejbgunner. This is Crime Time. Today we're going to be defending legally, kind of, fakely, on the video, Bryan Kohberger. Let's go ahead and get things started. Let's do it.
Bring it back.
Now, I bet you no other YouTubers are going to do this one. Because, well, everybody believes Bryan Kohberger's guilty. I believe he's guilty. But we got to look at things from both sides. So today we will hear the legal defense arguments for Bryan Kohberger and against the state. State's prosecution, we will hear that right here today. Before we do, though, I want to say first and foremost, thank you to everybody that supports the channel, regardless of the method you choose, whether it's cash. Well, you can't be Cash App no more since some stupid bitch took my shit and did some bullshit with it, but I'll get a new one up. So PayPal today, Patreon, Venmo, those are the ways to do it, but thank you to the ones that do. I couldn't do it each and every day as often as I do without you. With that being said, if you too like my content, feel free to hit the links down below. Support the channel, support your favorite YouTubers. No better time than now since your boy's taking the tax. Guys, we're gonna get right on into this. If you don't know, obviously the Idaho murders, we got 4 dead kids. We ultimately got a suspect in Bryan Kohberger, and not necessarily the trial, the court proceedings have already begun. Today what we're gonna do is simulate the final moments of this, the defensive argument, and that's what we're gonna do in this here today. So the prosecution, we're in the middle of the court. They show the evidence from the crime scene. And now I'm going to step in and defend Bryan Kohberger. Now, Your Honor and gentlemen and ladies of the jury, the Moscow Police Department, in their opening press conference, well, they announced that the front door of the house on King Street was open at 9 a.m. on November 13th, 2022. Right there, I want to show you guys right now the video of this opening press conference in which they said this. Let's take a look right now.
I'll answer the last part there just because it's at the front end of my mind. We're not 100% sure if the door was unlocked, but there was no damage to anything, and the door was still open when we got there.
And next, here we have a neighbor that said that they themselves saw the door open.
A bombshell new detail about the Idaho murders could change everything we think we know about the case so far. A neighbor told our Daily Mail reporters that they saw this door right here, the front door to the house, wide open at around 8:30 in the morning on November 13th, that Sunday, hours after 4 people in that house would be murdered and before their bodies would be discovered.
We have him here actually to tell you what he saw. We're going to go ahead and call him to the stand. So in this situation, we would call that person to the stand. This has been a eyewitness. We clearly see this. He would come up to the stand. He would say exactly what it was that he saw. So, Your Honor, the crime scene, here's the truth about the crime scene. It was unsecured between the hours of somewhat before 5 a.m. and sometime after 12 p.m. on November 13th, 2022. Truth is, anyone could have walked through the front door and adjusted or doctored the crime scene. Moved to strike all the evidence that these people gave in regards to the crime scene, because we have no idea whether this evidence was planted, whose evidence this was, whether it had anything to do with the murders. We have no clue, because the crime scene, and has been the entire time, was clearly available for doctoring. Now, of course, at this point, the prosecution would, they would object. They would say it's speculation. The judge would make some sort of decision on this. So that would pretty much be handled right there. But now back to this. Furthermore, Your Honor, prior to the front door being wide open for anyone to walk in, whatever hour that they may have been, that the front door was actually closed, The house is an unknown party house and has been for years, and anyone who knew the code combination for the lock on the front door could have walked right in. The door didn't even have to be necessarily open for the crime scene to be disturbed. Truth of this matter is, as so many people knew the code, anyone could have walked right in. At this point, you would see another objection from the prosecution. That objection would be denied. Obviously, it's a factual thing. It's been stated many times. Now, let's get back to this. This man, Bryan, was pulled over by the cops on August 21st, 2022, prior to the crime taking place. The man was pulled over for no reason twice on a dangerous highway in Indiana, with huge trucks driving by the Indiana police at the request of the FBI. He was pulled over twice then. No ticket was given on either stop. This is just simply harassment. The FBI has been rummaging through this man's parents' trash for DNA with no warrant whatsoever on private property trespassing. At first, the knife sheath wasn't seen, but then the Officer Payne came to the scene after 4 p.m. Let's keep this in mind. They had been there in the crime scene all of this time for 4 hours. And then it was when Officer Payne came at 4 p.m. that all of a sudden the sheath was found? That don't make sense. He suddenly discovered it. The knife could have been placed there by the police, and you may say, why, Your Honor? Your Honor, the police had no suspects and stated no one was a suspect right before all of this. This despite Jack D, despite the 4chan posts about the frat boy, L&O, the social media of Jack D making bad comments about Kaylee. The Lady B, obviously Bethany, was a friend of Dylan. The haters from U of I didn't like Kaylee and Maddie, and the sorority sisters who posted images on social media with knives. These police that we're talking about right now, you may ask yourself why they would stage this case. Well, there's a couple reasons. These police are aligned with the fraternities and the University of Idaho. And they're aligned, and the reason that they're aligned is to blame someone from outside of the state of Idaho so that the Idaho may gain back the up to 40% of their students who dropped out after the murders in the new semester. 40%. They want that money back. Let's call it what it is. We all understand that 50% of this town's revenue comes from the colleges. The police and the FBI have engaged in a cover-up of monstrous proportions and participated in an all-out drive to frame my client here. The sweet, innocent former PhD student, Bryan Kohberger. The man who lost 250 pounds just so other people would like him. The man whose parents are crying, right over there, Your Honor. They're right over there crying, bawling their eyes out. Right over there. The man whose dad helped him drive however many miles across the country from Washington State University, only to be accused and ridiculed as a conspirator for murder for his kindness. The man whose mom is there crying her eyes out, and all she wanted was to tell her sewing group that her son was going to get his PhD. The young sweet man who applied to serve and protect in the Washington State University Police Force and their digital division, the same way he thought of volunteering to protect this country and the young Army Ranger program. Moved to throw out these charges, Your Honor, in this witch hunt against my client. This young sweet man who has no police record in his entire 28 years of life on this planet, and was pursuing his lifelong pursuit to be a PhD in criminology. These men are clearly jealous because he was going to get an advanced degree, and he became the guy to throw under the bus in this situation, in this case, Your Honor. To protect Jack D, who was looking pretty bad throughout this entire case. Let's just call it what it is. Who was looking pretty bad and who could have gone out of this house that night by climbing up onto the roof, as people on that house did in so many videos here and here and here. Multiple videos all across the internet. It's been entered into evidence. And there's Dylan on the stand, this so-called surviving roommate, Dylan. Miss Saint don't call 911, whose dad apparently just got out of jail, whose boyfriend regularly wore a ski mask and conveniently was with friends playing video games just like Jack D that night in Boise. Just like Jack S, who was trying to get laid and protect Maddie and Kaylee, but then hightailed it out of Dodge as he seemingly knew something was going to happen. Something was going down, and he would need an alibi for this situation. Just like the frat brothers, who turned off their cell phones for the relevant hours. No one's talking about them turning off their cell phones for the relevant hours. This Dylan, who gave the camera a middle finger, pretended to be a lesbian, invited Kaylee to a party as her +1 so she could be there that weekend. Who looks like a druggie and acts like one. In fact, even in her own statements, she said she saw this man, this killer, walking towards her, and she just went back into the room and went to sleep. Didn't call 911 for 6 hours. You find that a little odd? Was she hallucinating? Was she a druggie? Was she involved? We need to ask these questions. We can talk about Dylan again, who we cannot criticize or will be burned at the stake, who looked with evil eyes upon Kaylee and this picture right here that creeps everyone out, who was friends with the Lady Bethany of the, not Bethany, but the Lady B of the frat conspiracy. This is Dylan. This Dylan is your only witness. Witness to what? A man in a COVID-19 mask required to be worn by the state who was just trying to protect others from COVID so they would not drown to death on land from this monstrous virus? This considerate, law-abiding, health-conscious, self-sacrificing individual whose eyebrows are being made fun of by the entire country, calling him a killer because he's got bushy eyebrows? Let's call it what it is. This could have been anyone with bushy eyebrows wearing their government-distributed COVID-19 mask as previously required in this liberal sack of shit state. Oh, man, this is good shit. The only other witness is apparently a cat that was out taking a piss. Can we talk about that? It would have been Jerry Nadler. It could have been Jerry Nadler, even if he lost weight and grew. I move for this case to be thrown out and for the rich and politically connected to be investigated. That's what I'm moving for right now. I move for this young man to be allowed to return to his rural farmhouse in Pennsylvania and his doctorate program at Washington State University, and for this witch hunt to end, cease to exist. Defense lawyer extraordinaire. If the glove outside don't fit, you must acquit. If there's no knife, he couldn't take the life. That's the truth. If the dog don't bark until 4:17, my client is pristine. If they told Adam, they got back Adam. If Jack S. ran away, the evil was in play. If they got Uber and DoorDash, the drivers maybe wanted more cash. If JD juggled an axe, if Chef Dizzy cooked with knives, if JD was dumped, if Maddie was cheating at the food truck, if number 9 at the food truck made a sleepy motion singling Maddie, if the sorority sisters had their function attended by people pretending to be lesbians to bring in outsiders who dropped out of the sorority and stole their off-campus party house, Your Honor, there is reasonable doubt. Throw out this case. It's that simple. What a crazy defense. What a crazy ass defense. But it makes sense. Is there reasonable doubt? So I'm going to ask you guys, is there reasonable doubt? Shout out to my man, Paul, for sending me this, because he's right. A good lawyer can create reasonable doubt. Because that's all it requires is reasonable doubt. I mean, there's a lot more that obviously the defense needs to look at. I'm sure they will, but now it's up to you guys. Do you think a good defense was made? I mean, listen, I'm gonna tell you right now. I know a lot of you guys are gonna be like, stop giving the defense things to work with. Look, man, if the case is solid, you have nothing to worry about. Bryan Kohberger will be off in jail, off in prison, probably get the death penalty. But the reality of this is you have to look at it from both avenues, both directions, and I like to play devil's advocate. It's just the way this is. And so when I got this email, I said to myself, all right, let me run this by the audience, right? And so hopefully you guys kind of enjoyed it. It was a different type of video. Motherfuckers made me do some editing, and I hate fucking doing editing, but you guys made me do. I like to do all my videos just freestyle, off the cuff, and I just, bam, right in your face. Like you was abroad, but just bam, just, yeah. Anyway, so now that you got a facial, I want to know your opinions on all this. What do you think about this? Do you think the defense has any chance at all? Was there reasonable doubt? Is there reasonable doubt? I get it. We're always going to go back to the DNA, so I'm sure your answer will be no. Guys, with all that being said, if you like what I do here and you find my content valuable, feel free to hit the links down below. We will be live later tonight. Many of you guys have already, especially knowing the Cash App's down, a lot of you guys have already hit PayPal, Apple Cash, which is always cool because that shit, well, you got my phone number and you can send cash at the same time. I think that's awesome. Venmo and all that. You guys have already stepped up on them platforms to kind of soften the blow of my Cash App going down. And I got to say, man, thank you to every last one of you. And the rest of you, if you want to join the Gun Squad, feel free to hit the links. I love you guys. I will see you tonight. I wanted your opinion on this because this was a weird video for me to make. I don't even know if it came out right. Don't really give a fuck either. So either enjoy it or suck my dick.